Hello everyone, and welcome back to Introduction to OPCloud. In today's session, we're going to present how to model requirements in OPCloud. In this feature, we learn about how to add requirement, remove requirement, create requirement views, and more. First, let's start with our model. Here, I've pasted a note with our current requirements for modeling. Our example will include the door peephole system. Let's see what are the requirements. The first requirement is peephole is a part of the door. Second requirement, as a peephole should be a typical height. Typical height is ranged from 56 inches to 64 inches. Third, the peephole comes in two parts, which includes the lens and the sleeves. The fourth, it may include a peephole cover. And the fifth, the peephole should enable one-way view for the user to see the incoming visitors. Okay, so first we need to start modeling our system. As we can see, we have the peephole as part of the door. So let's start with the door, which is a physical object. And since now we know that everything will be physical most of the time, we will need to change our default settings. The second is to create our peephole. And we shall also create it as physical. Now we want to know that the peephole is part of the door. Let's connect it, and we use the aggregation participation link, which also shows us that a door consists of a peephole. And we can arrange it nicely. As the first step, now that we've managed to create our system, let's define our requirement. So, in order to fulfill the first requirement, we need to put an additional requirement on each of the elements composing, satisfying, or partially satisfying this requirement. This includes the door, the peephole, but also the link. So let's start first with how we add our requirement. We select the thing we want to add a requirement to, and then we can see there is a new group here as called OPM requirements. Once we open it, we have the add requirements, and later on we will see create a requirements view. So first, let's add requirement. Add requirement will add the hidden field attributes of satisfied requirement set, which include several requirements. We can move it to the other side, change the port if you like, and then arrange it. We shall give the name or ID according to what we want. So in order for us to have a very simple thing, let's call each requirement here requirement with the number. So this will be requirement 1. Later on, we shall see how we can connect it to external system if, for example, the requirements are handled in an outside system, or how can we elaborate on each requirement. So the first thing, we add it to the door. Now we shall add it to the peephole. Again, we created such a requirement set, and we can again add it as requirement number 1. It's the same requirement. The last thing we need to do is add it to the link itself. We'll go to the link, right click, and then we can see the new requirement set. We shall add it again as requirement 1, and then we will be able to see if we want to display it or not. This option will display the requirement set on the link, This is a help to understand which requirement we want to do. And this is a link to an external system to connect the specific requirement to the requirement on the other system. If we want to manage several requirements on a link, we should use the separating semicolon like that in order to do it. Once we finish, we can click the update. We can see that the link added the satisfied requirement 1. As you can see, we already managed to model one requirement in our system. Now, let's say we want to hide it and show it. For this way, we can use the toggle option. For example, if I'm selecting a thing, going to the requirement, now you can see there is the toggle satisfied requirement set. If I will click on it, it will hidden our requirement. If I will again use it again, it will come back. If I want to hide all the things in our model, I will click again on the requirement and toggle all model requirements, and that will hide all the requirements in the current OPD. If I will right-click again on the link in order to see the requirement, you can see that it is here, but the checkbox is unchecked. If I will click on it again, it will come back. So I can select and deselect it as I want to do. Now let's continue to modeling. Most of our system, we have our options to do the process. So we have the process. Let's create it as a physical process, and we can see that it is doing the approaching visitor viewing. We can connect the instrument link from the peephole, and then we know that in the end the system is for the viewer. We should change it again to be physical, and he is an agent to our system. We want to know what it gains from the viewing. The people should be enabled one-way view to see the incoming visitor. So let's create the approaching visitor knowledge as an attribute of the viewer, and let's add our state between unknown visitor and known. We can arrange it nicely, and our process is changing from unknown to known. So now we have few more options. We know that the approaching visitor view is also an attribute of the peephole. So we can add it, and as you can see, we already have the requirement set as part of the attribute of the peephole. Now let's see what again. We need to know the typical height of the peephole in two parts, include peephole cover, and so on. So in order for continue modeling, let's unfold the peephole itself in order to continue modeling and then add whatever we want to do. So we select the peephole and then we unfold it into our different. We can leave the door as part of it. It shows the requirement. We can again select and unselect it. We see that we have part of it, the approaching view. If we want to keep it, we can keep it, but currently we don't want to see it. It's overcrowding our diagram, so we can remove it. Only this instance, of course. And now let's add our parts of what we want to do. As you can remember, we have two parts, lens and sleeve. So let's add it. We have the lens, again, it's a physical, and we have the sleeve, which will also be physical, and they are also part of the peephole. So let's add it into the peephole, and they are part of it. Now we want to add the height of the peephole. So we create another object, and we model the height, and it is an attribute of our system. The height itself can be whatever we want to do. So let's do it as a computation process. We can select a range between whatever we want to do. I can create a range or just add it. Since it's between 56 and 64, let's select 60, and the unit will be in inches. If we want to use an alias, we can use it, and let's give it the letter H. So now we have our height. Again, we can see that we have added the two parts, lens and sleeves. The typical height as requirement 2 is 60. We may include a peephole cover if you want to do, and it enables us to see whatever we want to see. So let's add the requirement that we want to use. Here you can see that the typical height should be 64. This is requirement 2. So we can, in order for us to select whatever we want to do, we'll go to the height and again add requirement. So the requirement here is requirement 2. Now we shall consider, do we need something more of the height? The height by itself is okay, but it needs to be part of the actual peephole. So we're going to model it and edit requirement 2. Let's go for the lens and sleeves. We know, as we can see previous, that lens and the sleeves are part of the peephole, and it's requirement 3. So let's go back and let's toggle our options. We satisfy requirement set. As you can see, it is part of the peephole. It's a requirement 1. And now we want to add our requirement 3 as the lens and the sleeves. So in order to add another requirement, we can select the peephole and add a requirement. We can select the satisfy requirement set and add a requirement. And as you can see, it is automatically named satisfy requirement set, and we cannot change it. And it is automatically defined as satisfy requirement 1 and so on. So if I will add another one, let's select it from here, and I will add it, you will be able to see that it is, arrange it nicely, that it is created as number 2. The numbers are automatically, and if I will delete one of them, it will go back to be number 1 or number 2 according to our needs. So again, here we're modeling requirement number 3. And let's say we wanted to add another one. Again, I can select the peephole in this time, and I will add requirement. And here I can see, and let's create it as requirement 2. If I want to remove the previous one, as I said, if I will select it, you cannot delete it. There is no deletion here. In order to delete a specific requirement, you need to go to the requirement and delete it. Now you will see that we have 1, 2, and 3. So when I will delete it, and it will remove from the entire model, you will be able to see that the next one was updated to number 2. But since I wanted to model the requirement 3 and not 2, I will update it here. So requirement 3, we need the peephole, and the lens, let's just copy it to be more easily. Let's update first our links. Right click on the link here. I don't need to see it. And then I can go again and update requirement 3. I don't need to see it. And now let's add our requirement that we want to do. So we added requirement, is requirement 3. And then we can take the sleeves and add it as requirement 3. Again, we will need to arrange it so it will be nicely done. OPCloud will try to put it in the right direction, but as it is a problem to add hidden on top of things, we don't need to stress ourselves. And of course, if I don't want to see it at all, I will go there, select the object or thing, and will just toggle it in order to hide it. Again, toggle it for the lens, toggle it for the set, the sleeve. So we've added our requirement 3, we added our requirement 2, we added our first requirement. We can toggle everything if you don't want to see them, and then we can hide everything so we can't even see them. So what are we going to do next? The next thing is to check what satisfies a specific requirement. For that, you can either select a thing, or you can select, we've not added our requirement for the last part. So the viewer will be able to see one way. So we add requirement 5 here, and we can also add the approaching visitor. This is another requirement. So we'll add it here. And do we need to add the actual viewer itself and its knowledge? We can do so, but let's leave it like that. For currently, we can again toggle it in order to see everything or not. So nicely. The next thing we want to do is to create a view of what satisfied a specific requirement. For example, if I will click on the Create Requirement view, OPCloud will automatically go over all the requirements that I've modeled and will show me all of them. So if you can see two things that look the same but are not on the same thing, it means that we have some kind of an error or typo in a requirement name. Once I want to do, I will click on the Create Requirement view, and OPCloud will automatically create a view in the OPD tree under the tag Requirement Views, and you can see that the name is View of Requirement 1 Satisfying Model Parts, and it will take all the things that satisfied a specific requirement. Currently in Requirement 1, we have the 3 things. Now, let's go back to our model and think what happens into Requirement 2. If you remember, we took Requirement 2 and put our requirement on the height and the link itself. Now in OPM, a link cannot be displayed without a source and a target by its own, meaning that OPCloud will take the minimal viable thing that we need to do in order to show it. So if I will go and create a view of requirement 2, it will create for us the link, the height, but also the peephole, even though peephole by itself does not include requirement 2, because the link is requirement 2. And this is the same thing, for example, if we go to the viewer as requirement 5. If I will go there and take requirement 5, you will see that it will bring us the process, the link, but also the object as the source, even though the object by itself is not part of the requirement, because it is part of it since it is connected to the link. Now, if I want to update the view or add something, I don't need to, and I cannot do it in the view itself. The view is read-only. I can only adjust how I want to see it. I will need to go back and then update whatever I want to do. For example, if I want to add the object as a requirement of requirement 5, we'll add requirement, and then we shall create it as requirement 5. And now we can update our view. In order to update the view, we have two options. First, we open the create view requirement and then click on the update requirement view. This is one thing, and as you can see, it brought our new added object of the requirement here, and it is not connected since we didn't connect any of it. The next option, in order for us to do it, first of all, again, let's hide it. So we, again, selecting it and toggle it. Now let's add the requirement 5 on our links of in and out. So we have requirement 5, and we have here, again, the requirement 5 as a different. Now, in order for us to update our link, we shall right-click on the view, and you can see that we can either remove it or update it. We cannot change the name or anything else. So let's click Update, and as you can see, now the links are brought also and satisfy our requirement 5. Now the last thing we want to do is to show how we can enrich our model. Let's take into an example our height. Let's express our requirement 5, requirement 2 in this case, and see how can we enrich it. We can anchor a defined stereotype with all the needed fields as part of the satisfied requirement set for each requirement. For that, once we select the satisfied requirement itself, we have a new option, Connect Requirement Stereotype. As you can see, we added the requirement stereotype. And as you can see here, we have the requirement as a stereotype and has all the fields. Here we can select what's the essence, the actual name, the ID, description, actor set, and we can add as much as we want to do. In order to express it, let's go back to our thing, our OPD, and then unfold our model, and as you can see, it is here. Now, please note that we can add even newer attributes. Yes. For example, we have an attribute, so we can add it as a more attribute later on. We can add it as part of it. For some reason it is stuck here. And we can define whatever we want to do. For example, the name of it will be requirement as it is format. We can do it as requirement 5. And we can decide if it's operational, and then find it as the current one. Is it hard or soft validation? Let's say is hard validation, and so on. And we can do whatever we want to do. Another thing is if we want to remove it, first of all, we can remove the unfolded OPD, and if we want to remove the stereotype, we need to select it, again going to the group and remove the requirement stereotype. Please note that it will remove it entirely, and even if you've changed things, it will not be expressed in the model. The last thing I want to show you and tell you is that you can use requirement in your stereotypes, different stereotypes, to be included as part of it. You can use it within templates and so on. So once you will create a template with a stereotype, it will be added into your model, and then you can reuse it and so on. And later on, we will enhance it to include more options and more availability. Let's see how we connect to external system. Once I select a thing or stereotype, in that case, I have the add hyperlink URL, and then I can connect it to any kind of system that I want to connect. This is true here, and it is also true in our link. So if I will click here, I will have the same model, and I can do requirement system.com slash with, let's say, an ID 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we can do preview and so on. And if I will save it, I have the link and it will come back, and then I can see that it is here. Then once I update it, it is included, and so it can be here. It can be part of the requirement itself. It can be part of the states and so on. So you can connect and get the data from the external system once you use it. I hope you enjoyed this session and our new feature of modeling requirements. I hope to see you next time. Please like and subscribe to our channel for new videos and new features of OPCloud. Thank you.